gamer. If you haven't grown up by the age of 50, you don't have to.
All right, guys, welcome to Wrestling, Video Games, and Retro Adventures. And tonight we're going to talk about what, Jeff? Video games, right?
Video games this time around. Yep.
Here it is.
We haven't done it in a while. We've been on
No,
the wrestling
we haven't.
Yeah, if we were to talk about wrestling, it would be the Von Erichs, and for me, because that's the last time I was into wrestling.
We could all talk about the Von Erichs, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Right on.
Maybe another time.
Well, before we go any further, I want a special welcome to our guest tonight, Brett Weiss, author extraordinaire of video game books as well as other books, freelance writer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and just basically one knowledgeable person about retro video games whose books I love to read and look at. So thanks. Welcome for coming. Thank you for coming. Welcome, Brett.
Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
Right on. What do you think? Is it time for me to update my video? I've been doing that. Video is about 3 years old now.
It's a catchy song.
Pete, I just told Silly while I was on. I said I love Pete's theme song.
I had offers to make like new theme songs and stuff like that. You know, hey, I'll make you a theme song. It's like Mike talked about it before he realized about knowing Dan. So Dan from Rebel Gaming Club made my theme song for me, and I've gotten more talk about that theme song. I'm keeping the music.
It's a
but I
pretty
think
good
I
one.
got to update the video that goes with it because nothing in that video is still where it used to be at that time.
If you just make sure you grab that same 3D tic-tac-toe game, though, Pete.
Yeah, really. I'd have to find it now. Well, you know, I could never. It's right here. Nothing's ever very far away. Always with arm's reach, right? Anyway, let's get to our special guest, Brett. Again, thanks for joining us tonight.
Absolutely.
Well, going to go on some of the things. You have a lot of projects on the go right now. One major project. I've done a few videos on your NES Omnibus Volume 1. And so obviously what's coming next?
Well, NES Omnibus Volume 2, I'm actually finished it. I just finished the text edits yesterday and sent them in to my publisher, Schiffer. And what they will do, I turned in the manuscript maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And so they did the text edits on their end, sent them back to me for review and revision. And then I sent those back to them, then to go through the design process. So what they're doing now is all the photos that I submitted and all the text I submitted after editing it, they're going through and designing the book. So my publisher actually designs the book. I write it and supply the pictures and also have contributing authors, as you know.
Yeah.
And then right now the book is in the design process and it'll be out at the end of October.
How gratifying is each step in each stage in that process to you?
Well, it is gratifying, but it's almost more of a relief than anything because it's so much work and there's a lot involved and there's just so many hurdles along the way and so many challenges. And when you're finished, it is really very gratifying. And it's definitely a relief along the way because I have a lot of other irons in the fire too. I've got a freelance writing job. I write for different publications, and I've got some side hustles, and the writing books is just part of it. What I do, and so it's probably takes up the most time of anything. Each
making videos. Yeah,
I've started kind of getting pretty serious about YouTube over the last year, and that's going really well. I actually have thought about YouTube for what's that?
You have some great ideas when you do
thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny to mention that. When I started YouTube, taking it seriously about 1.5 years ago, I thought, what can I do that's different? A lot of people do lists and whatever, and just review the latest Switch games. What can I do that's different? I said, well, I'm an old guy, so I can talk about stories from back in the day, not just the games, that too, but just the culture surrounding it. Like, what was it like to live through the great video game crash? When I was 16 years old in 1983. I had a car and a job. So what was I doing? I was going from store to store, buying games out of bargain bins for the Intellivision, Atari 2600, ColecoVision, that they were marking them down to $4.99, then all the way down to 99 cents. And I've heard some people say they've seen them for 49 cents and a quarter. The lowest I ever saw them was for 99 cents.
It's kind of funny. I'll say this. Jeff and I are the same age. We were born the same year. I think you might be the first person we've had on, or not very often there's somebody else in the room who's actually older than Jeff and I. I'm not trying to put you down at all, but it's neat to hear you say that during the crash you were 16 and you could be out driving around looking for them.
Well, I was born in 1967, the summer of love, when you know, so I kind of have that spirit within me, I believe, and but yeah, I was 10 years old when the 2600 came out and Star Wars came out. It was an amazing time, and I got my ColecoVision when I was 15 and Christmas of '82. So I was around for all the good stuff.
Was that your first big system, the ColecoVision? What was your big love when you were a kid for video games? What got you started in video games, I guess is the best way to put it. Right.
So in 1975, I discovered Pong and Midway's Gunfight and some electromechanical machines in the arcades.
Boy, in the arcades,
you know, the physical games like where you manually maneuver the bat to hit the ball into targets and that kind of stuff.
I love those. I'd love to have one at baseball.
They're so physical. They're just a lot of fun. Yeah. But I played those, and even prior to that, I played some pinball. And so that was 75. Well, Christmas of that year, my cousin, whose mom bought him whatever he wanted, got Pong, Atari Pong. And so my family went over there after Christmas just to visit for the holidays. And my cousin said, hey, come back to my room. Let me show you what I got for Christmas. And so me and my brother go back there, and he's got Pong in his room, which blew my mind because I was familiar with the arcade version. And at that moment, I didn't know you could play games in a house, video games in a house before that, because I wasn't aware of the original Magnavox Odyssey from '72. I'd never heard of that. I'd never seen a commercial for it. None of my friends had it. And so when I saw Pong in my cousin's room, I was just like, what? What is this? And that you could play games on a TV set just blew my mind. So that was the beginning. And I didn't own my own console until '82 with the ColecoVision because the television Atari 2600 was just, my parents weren't going to do that. It was just too expensive. They didn't do that. Was way too expensive.
We say about games nowadays, like, I don't know, let's say, for example, the Amico, $250, right? Well, back then, the Intellivision was $275 to $300 in 1979, 80. Well, that's around $1,000 now, right?
Exactly. And the 2600 was $250 when it came out. So that's the same as the Amico now. So we got it price-wise, we've got it good today.
We really do. We really do. Even when you put it in perspective, I look at some of the ones like the PS5 and stuff like that. It goes $600 up here, right, Canada, and it's like, wow, but it's nothing compared to what it used to be. You know, It's nothing compared to what it used to be.
Very true. But I did have the first games I owned were the Mattel electronic handhelds. Because those were $25 to $30, and then there were some of the knockoffs that were $20, $25, $18. I remember I bought a Dr. J ripoff basketball game. It was sort of patterned after Dr. J without his licensing, and it was sort of like a Mattel handheld. It was a basketball game at Kmart. I got it for $18 because it was cheaper than the Mattel, but it had a glitch. You could push the button and just go right through and make a basket every time as long as you just kept pushing the button. So I got what I paid for. But yeah, we had Mattel football, we had basketball, and then we got Mattel football 2. And so, that was my first games I actually had at home. Had a pretty decent sized collection.
You're talking the ones that the little red dashes, right? They used to go up and down and slide through and stuff. They're pretty
love them. Yeah, love them.
I have this in the background now because I pulled it out. I did an unboxing for my video. I always said, it's the old guy gamer unboxing. I unboxed a box of stuff that was over in the corner of this room for 20 some years. I had no idea what was in it. Coleco head-to-head baseball.
Yeah, Coleco head-to-head, yeah.
And I pulled out all kinds of stuff. Doesn't sound the best of the world, but it works.
Hey, it still works.
Well, back then, it was very exciting for us to have those games. You know, we didn't know any better. We were just super excited about it. And I would go to my friend's house and my cousin's house. And, I mean, I was constantly going over to their houses to play their Odyssey 2, their Atari 2600. And in 1976, strange coincidence, my two very best friends, one lived right next door to me and one lived about a mile away. They each had a Fairchild Channel F in 1976 when they came out. So that's the first game console, with cartridges that I played.
Other than in the catalog, I don't remember ever seeing one of those, nor a Bally or Bally Astrocade.
Right, yeah. I didn't know anybody that had an Astrocade or a Arcadia 2001 either, or an RCA Studio 2 or an Adventure Vision. But I discovered these later. But I did play the Fairchild in '76 on 2 different.
Oh, what's the name? I couldn't believe it. I got a call from somebody trying to sell some video games here about 2 years ago now, and it's a different name in Canada, but it's the Arcadia 2001.
Is it? Let's see. I used to know this. Can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. Leisure Vision. Is it the Leisure Vision?
What is that?
Is it the Leisure Vision?
It is a Leisure Vision, I think. Anyway, I'll run out of the blue. Hey, I got this Leisure Vision. Do you want to buy it?
Right.
Yeah, well, how much? $40. So I was like, yeah, sure. And
there's some pretty decent games on there. Jungler and Spiders and a few others.
Brett, how did you like that Fairchild? I've never even played one.
Well, in 1976, it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. Hasn't dated as well as the 2600. Hasn't aged as well, but I loved it. The gunfight shootout game. There's a Pong type game on there that's really dynamic, and so I loved it. I thought it was great at the time. But then friends in junior high started getting the 2600 and playing like Combat and Air Sea Battle and Circus Atari and stuff like that. Just was amazing. And I was just so jealous that they had it, but at least I could go to their house and play it.
And I did have one of those when I was a kid. And of course, you would get your 10, 12 games, wherever you would get, and you would get together with friends who had one, and they'd have like 2 or 3 of the same game, or they'd have 10 or so others that were different. And you're always like, go to school and you trade the cartridges for a week or something like that. Or you get together and play and you have big tournaments. It's not like marbles where you keep the marbles, but you'd throw all the games into a pile, pull one out at random, and see who could win the most games. Because you can play the games in 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, great fun.
16 seconds. And then whoever
Combat is still one of the best 2-player. To this day, Combat is still one of the best 2-player games of all time. Absolutely.
Oh, you have it right there.
Okay, you can't pull something out of your collection every time we talk about it.
Okay. I will not pull one out of my collection every time. But I'll pull 8.
Well, yeah.
Or 9 or 10.
I remember going to the pawn shops and stuff and just seeing stacks of those everywhere.
Yeah, really. Anyway, I tend to go one way or the other here all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk. I always want to talk about the Intellivision because I love the Intellivision.
Yeah.
I really do. And I know you have a history of it because you talk a lot about the Intellivision. You have an appreciation for it from back in the day. When did you start playing the Intellivision back in the day, and do you still play it nowadays?
Well, I was 14 years old, and I was going out with a girl who was 16, which was awesome because she had a car, among other perks of dating a 16-year-old.
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive, Brett. 14.
It was nice. It was nice.
Well done.
But I only bring it up is because also she had an Intellivision. Her dad had an Intellivision, and him and his friends would just go crazy playing NFL football, NBA basketball, NHL hockey, just going nuts, laughing and just having the best time playing that. As a matter of fact, they dominated the console so much, my girlfriend and I didn't have a chance to play it that much, although we played it some. But then a short time later, there was this event at these people's house, all-nighter thing, bunch of guys, and this guy had a television, and he had this was later when Astro Smash came out. He had Astro Smash and Star Strike and Space Armada, and I was like, okay, the television, that's what truly won me over on the Intellivision, as opposed to the strategy or the sports. The space games and the shooter games really what got to me on the Intellivision. So from that point on, I've been a big fan, and I do still play it today. I still play Beauty and the Beast and a bunch of games for it. I still love it. Still got some, I get the homebrews.
That's your favorite game, right? Beauty and the Beast?
Beauty and the Beast is my favorite all-time Intellivision game. It's the most arcade-like. It's one of my favorite genres, what they used to call the climbing genre, which they now call the non-scrolling platformer. But yeah, that's my favorite television game. And some of these homebrews that have come out, like Space Patrol, the Moon Patrol clone that has other planets, holy cow, it's great.
Yeah,
and Christmas Carol. But as far as the original releases, Beauty and the Beast for sure is my all-time favorite game.
That's cool. I have just sort of gotten into the homebrews myself. I've picked up a few, and man, some of the things that they could do with the systems nowadays compared to what and it's just because of experience, and it's also they can have more memory. Things like that are just phenomenal. So it's done incredible things because you can play the retro style, the pure retro style, but with a more modernized game. Is that fair to say?
And the controller works really, you hear a lot of knocks against the control disc, and it's different, and it can be a little awkward for something like Pac-Man, but these homebrewers have really figured it out. Like I play Christmas Carol, which is a maze game, and I don't have any problem with the controls. And some of the later in television releases, the original releases, the programmers figured out the disc better, and they actually started designing games that would work well with the disc, like Worm Whomper. That was created with the disc in mind. And Beauty and the Beast, climbing game, it works so well. It gets controls perfectly, even though it's kind of a precision game.
It can kind of get, I find that it can get kind of slippery at times. It feels like, but usually it just takes a little bit of practice. You can really overcome that. It's not that slippery, meaning it's easy to overshoot the windows trying to climb up them. But it's like I said, you can overcome anything with the practice. And I love the Intellivision disc and the controller because of course I play with it so much, right? And the original Atari joystick, but it's the same thing. I always say it. Nowadays, you play with a controller and you control the direction with your left thumb and the buttons with your right. And back in those days with Atari, it was the opposite, right? I always controlled the direction with my right hand,
right?
With the television, and the buttons were with your left. And that I think is more of a difference than anything with those controllers.
Well, it's funny because those early controllers were all different. Each system had a completely different controller than another system, whereas PlayStation sort of streamlined it with, Xbox came out with a similar controller to what the PlayStation was doing, and vice versa. They just kind of had this streamlined look. And there's so many third-party controllers that have that basic Xbox look to them. But in the old days, the Atari joystick is so much different than the ColecoVision, is so much different than the Fairchild, so much different than the Astrocade. They were just all over the map with these controllers. And then the NES sort of just blew everything out of the water.
Would you say standardized?
The NES standardized it for sure. And then it just sort of, with the Super Nintendo rounding the corners, and then it developed into the PlayStation Dual, analog and all that. So, Beauty and the Beast is definitely way better than Donkey Kong for sure, in my opinion.
Absolutely,
even though it
I agree.
basically has one screen. I mean, one type of.
Have you played DK Arcade on the Intellivision?
Yeah, I have it. Yeah, absolutely, amazing.
It is something else, though. What they can do with the knowledge they have. It lends credibility. Although I really don't believe it myself either. That Coleco produced a game to make the Intellivision system look bad.
That's
an old wives' tale.
Yeah, I think that's a myth because some of the games are actually very good. Like Venture on the Intellivision is really good.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I've reviewed that one on the 125, and I had not played it a lot, and I really did enjoy it. My show trying to go through the 125 different games in a series. So I'm only 15 into it.
Mousetrap is really good on the 2600, and they even added a feature, Invisible Mazes. They're not going to add features if they're trying to make it bad. So
that's right. That's right. Yeah. It's just sort of when something could be made so well compared to what they did, it was just a poorly programmed. Well, I won't even say poorly programmed game. I don't think that's fair either. I think it was a product of its time.
Mm. Yeah, I like Donkey Kong on the 2600. It's Gary Kitchen, and it only has 2 screens, and it's different. But he did a pretty good job of just making it a playable game. That strikes a nice balance between challenging and not too hard. And it's just
the feel is there, isn't it?
Well,
the feel is there in Gary Kitchen's version,
right? And what I like about these old games, see, my brother and I spent a lot of time in the arcades. I mean, I played the heck out of Mooncresta and Mousetrap and Asteroids, and I mean, I could name 100 200 300 titles. I don't know. We played a lot of those games, and I actually didn't mind that the home versions were different because it gave you a different kind of challenge. As a matter of fact, when Pac-Man came out, the 2600, I was completely burnt out on the arcade version because there was a Pac-Man at a convenience store by my junior high school, and I had played that into the ground, and I was tired of it. And so when Pac-Man on the 2600 came out, my sister's mother-in-law got all their family members an Atari 2600. So I'd go to my brother-in-law and my sister's house and play their Atari, and they had Pac-Man. I thought, this is great. This is super fun, and it's so different than the arcade. It's a whole new challenge. And I told Todd Fry that one time, at of course the creator of the game.
Yeah,
I told him that at Portland one time. We were hanging out in the bar, and I told him, I said, I actually liked the 2600 version of Pac-Man when it came out because it was different, because I was tired of Pac-Man. And he goes, you know, I've never heard anybody say that before.
I don't know that I have either, really, but I've had a lot of people that liked it. Don't get me wrong, but I had played it only a little bit, loved it. So when it came out, I was disappointed because I wasn't overwhelmed with the original version in the arcade, right? At that point,
it's a bad port. It's a bad port for sure, but it's a playable maze game, and maze games are my favorite.
Yeah.
It's one of my 2 or 3 favorite genres. So,
yeah, there you go. So we already touched on the Intellivision. You had a chance to get your hands on a system that a lot of us have been waiting to see for a couple of years now. And speaking of controllers and adaptable and manipulable controllers, tell us what and I'm not going to say just tell us what your opinion on the Intellivision Amico is, but what games did you get to play?
Well, I played Moon Patrol, which was really a lot of fun. Kind of a nice take on the arcade classic. I played Shark, which was a lot of fun. The original Shark is one of my favorite Intellivision games, top 3 or 4. And I saw this family play it, and they were having a blast with it. It was very intuitive for every family member, and the mom won, which made Tommy just super excited. The mom of the family won, so Tommy was wanting the system for home, for families to play in their home, couch co-op and all that. He was really excited that the mom won, because he's trying to fill the parents and all that.
That's what he wanted to say.
Yeah, played those games, and I played a little bit of Evel Knievel, but mostly just watched that, and a little bit of Hot Wheels, but mostly watched. And but yeah, it was cool. And a couple of months, just 2 or 3 months ago, Tommy had messaged me and asked me if I wanted to come out to the National Video Game Museum, which is about 45 minutes from my house in Frisco, Texas, if I wanted to come out and play the Amico in advance. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'll do that. It's pretty easy choice to make. And
really. How far of a drive was it for you to go there? Oh, sorry, Jeff.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to ask you. I'm really curious about the controller.
Yeah.
How did you like it? How did it feel?
Well, that's been my one concern with the Amico over anything else is the controller, because my favorite controller is the PS1 DualShock. That just feels perfect to me. You've got a joystick, you've got the D-pad, you've got shoulder buttons, and it feels perfect. So I thought, leading up to it, I kind of wish the Amico would have gone in that direction. But man, I am pleasant. I don't know if I was surprised, because I've talked to other people that have played the Amico saying that the controller worked really well. But let's just say I was glad that I really, really enjoyed the controller. And I think it's going to work great for the games. And I think the games are obviously created with that controller in mind. Mm-hmm. And the games I played while I was there with that controller, the controller worked great. It had a natural feel to it. And you've got the shoulder buttons, kind of like the Super Nintendo. And the screen works well as a large button for shooting or whatever, jumping or whatever. And the disc just flows really well, and there doesn't seem to be lag, and it works really well.
It's going to be great. Sort of along that line, Lance has a question as well. How has your impressions, thoughts about the Amico changed since you were playing it? You had your anticipations, and now you have actual impressions. So how has it changed from what your anticipation was?
Well, I like that I can now say, instead of I'm hoping that the Amico is going to be fun and good, and I'm hoping the controller is going to work well, to saying it is a cool system, and I do like playing it. And so, yeah, just the confidence. And instead of saying I hope I like it, to saying I like it, that's the biggest change. It's very light. It's a light system. It almost feels like kind of one of these plug and plays, which I guess it kind of is, that you get like the flashbacks and things like that. It's maybe not quite as light as those, but it does feel a little lighter than I thought it would be.
So you actually picked it right up, the system itself, and looked it over?
Oh, yeah. And so, I just had to pose for some pictures with it for thumbnails and whatnot.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So it's funny, at one point I wanted to go to the 70s living room part of the National Video Game Museum. So I asked him if I could take an Amico over there and all that, and said, well, we know where to find you, so go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris said he liked Pac-Man in the 2600 because he had to put it in the quarters. Yeah, there you go.
Boy, that's a good point, because I mean, back when we were going to the arcades, we might have 50 cents or $1 in our pocket when we would go, and so I would look for tokens and coin slots. I would look for, there would be people playing pinball. If I saw a little kid or a parent playing pinball, I would wait for their game to be over, and because 9 times out of 10 they would walk away. They didn't know about matching, and so I would have a 10% chance of them popping a game and not knowing about it, and so I would get a free game of pinball. So I had so little money growing up, just of my own. I would look, I would turn in, I would do some. Once I got of lawn mowing age, that changed. Yeah. But when I was, 8, 9 years old, there was hardly, $1 a week allowance didn't go that far.
Did you check
we had to be very creative the way how we played games. So yeah, when you could play them at home again and again and again, no quarter, absolutely. That made the games better for sure.
I hadn't really thought about it a whole lot, but I can remember the times when you'd find a free game or you'd find a quarter in the slot, and how that was like, oh yeah, right on. That was like, that made your whole day right there, right?
Yeah, and I didn't just stumble across those. I actively looked for them. I mean, the first thing we'd go to the arcades. I might have 50 cents or 75 cents or $1.50 if I was lucky, and I would go around pushing the coin return, and I would usually start off with a little extra money just from that at a busy arcade like Malibu Grand Prix or Land of Oz or Aladdin's Castle. I would usually start off with some money, and sometimes I would find, back in the day, people would put the token on top of the machine or on the marquee. Every once in a while, you'd find one up there that somebody just walked off and forgot about.
Yeah, right on.
So, yeah, I managed to play a lot of games for not having much money. I had to be creative.
Well, you do what you got to do if you want to do it. To play, right?
Right.
One other quick thing on the Amico. Okay, you're there. How long were you there with that? Was that a couple hours or 3 hours or?
Well, it started at 11, and I got there shortly thereafter. And I was there. We didn't leave the museum till after 5.
Oh wow! Yeah. So
it was a fun day. Craig Skistimus, Stuttering Craig from Screw Attack, he was there. Yeah, and he's a friend of mine from way back, because I used to do those Screw Attack shows. Yeah. And that Screw Attack shows, the first one I went to, I believe it was 2009. That's when I discovered Angry Video Game Nerd and all, some of those other YouTubers. Some of them were just starting off at that point that are very popular now. And then that's when my son, he knew about the YouTubers first. I was a little too out of the demographic, I guess. I wasn't really paying attention to gaming YouTubers in 2009. That's changed, obviously. But at the time, the Screw Attack Game Convention, that's, Stuttering Craig ran those. And so he was there, and the retro game buyer with GameStop was there, the corporate retro gaming buyer, who I've known before. She refuses to stock my books in her store. She said her customers don't read. And so I think that's a little demeaning, but I see her point. I mean, a book is a hard sell to some gamers. Sometimes it's like trying to sell a fish, a bicycle, because the gamers I know a lot of gamers that are super intelligent, but a lot of it is on the technical side. They're interested in, modding systems or computers or what, and not necessarily in sitting down and reading a novel or something, or reading, they may not care that much about reading a book on games. But so I get her point. But I think these ones I have, the big full color, I think they would sell at GameStop. But she's not one. She don't want to give them. She's just, because I've talked to her a couple of times. She's not interested. But anyway, there were some journalists there, some other YouTubers like Cyrus Martin. Yeah, we just had a blast. And then after, Tommy took us all out to dinner at a local pizza restaurant and had a couple of beers and just had a blast. It was an amazing day. It was truly.
I saw the pizza picture.
Yeah, we had so much fun. It was such a great day. And, since there's been so few conventions and I haven't done this kind of thing to get like this, because I've done a lot of really cool gaming events over the years, and it's been a while. So it really stood out because of that as well, just getting to do something really cool like that.
Right on. So 6 hours, what was the overall tone of everybody who was leaving? Like, did people seem to be like happy, or people seem to be really, really impressed, or what?
Well, the people that were specifically invited, there were two kinds of people there. People that were specifically invited to the event that knew what to expect. And then this was just during museum open hours. They didn't publicize it because they didn't want to be overrun. They wanted, people to be able to play the games, to film videos, to write about it. and but it was during museum hours. So people that just happened to be there at the museum, a number of them played, like a family, and then just some random people here and there, some teenagers, and everybody, without exception, really enjoyed themselves playing it. It was definitely a positive vibe, and
Great.
there was a lot of good times. Everybody had a lot of fun playing the Miko for sure.
And Tommy would have left there happy.
He had a great day. He was all smiles and just, you know how he is. He's very energetic, and he was meeting people and just having a great time. He's very passionate about this project, obviously.
Absolutely.
And it was very gratifying, and he knew it. But, you know, he's confident. He knew people would like it.
That's great. That is great to hear. And you know, I'd seen quite a bit of your coverage of that. And if anybody who's watching, if they're not familiar with Brett's videos, you have how many videos? You have 4 or 5 videos out on that day.
Yeah, I have some gameplay videos for specific games, and then I've got a longer video, 20-something minute complete review of the console. Okay, and then with gameplay footage too. So yeah, just
so that's on
my
your channel.
Brett Weiss. Just hop on there, and you can see several recent Amico videos.
Okay, yeah, but Tales. Okay, yeah, it's under your name, Brett Weiss. But your show that you've made is Tales of a Retro Gamer, right?
Tales from, like
Tales from a Retro Gamer.
Yeah,
which is a fantastic title. I think I love the banner and such that you have. It's really great.
Appreciate it. You know how I got that banner by running a contest. I pretty early on when I started doing the channel, I put out the word. I said, "Hey, I want to do a contest. Just who can, design a banner for me?" And I said I could supply photos and whatever at book covers or whatever. And Sean Tiedemann, who directed The King of Arcades, that Richie Knuckles movie, he was the winner. He designed that Tales from a Retro Gamer banner, which is really cool of him.
What got you into YouTube? Because you started, when did you first jump into YouTube? Because I remember you starting not long, around the same time that I did.
Okay, I've been doing it seriously either 1.5 years or 2 years, I forget. But before that, I had a channel, and I did a little bit with it. I reviewed a couple of books, and sometimes I would just comment on something, but I just didn't really do much at all with it. Well, at one point, a friend of mine and I, this guy I know, he passed away, which I'll get to in just a minute. There was this guy named Curtis, and he did this website called Hold Square, and it was a global PlayStation 4 website where they would play, just go online and play games, and they would meet up every once in a while. It was all over the world, and every once in a while they would have a meetup in Texas or wherever. And it was a huge channel, or not a huge channel, but it was a very tight-knit channel with, a decent-sized crowd, and it was global and everything. Well, I thought, hey, we had been talking about gaming, and he was a little bit into retro, just the way I'm a little bit into modern. And we got to talking. I said, hey, about doing a podcast. So we started a video podcast.
Okay.
And it was really cool. He would come over to my house, and we had there was a girl that was on our channel too. And we just started up. We're having a lot of fun just talking about modern games, retro games, and everything. Well, we did this for a while now. We were going to conventions and doing some episodes. Well, he started having headaches and just started having some problems. And we were actually at a Star Trek convention one time, and we were waiting for the William Shatner to come on. This guy's a big-time Star Trek fan.
Right.
He had to leave before Shatner came on. His head was hurting so bad. And I knew it was serious at that point. And he fell at work, and all this stuff happened. But anyway, about a little over 3 years, I guess 3.5 years or so ago, he died just from brain aneurysm or something. Or it's a long story. But anyway, he passed away. So I lost a friend. I lost a podcasting partner. And I was this was probably over 4 years by now, because I remember after because I had been really wanting to do something with YouTube.
Sure.
Because I like content creation. I figured it'd be good exposure for the books. It's just fun to talk about video games. And I thought, this is great. Here's this guy that can do the technical stuff, and he keeps track with the modern stuff. And then here's me, retro. So I thought it was the perfect situation. And then he up and dies on me. And so for the next 1.5 years, 2 years, I was too depressed to even think about YouTube. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't completely depressed overall, but just when I would go to that YouTube space, I was just like,
that was something that the two of you had, and that just brought up those memories, right?
Yeah. So I just thought, I can't do YouTube anything stuck, and I don't know what to do because I have lost that podcast. I don't know what to do. Well, I got to talking to my son a little bit and everything, and I'd been rolling some ideas around, and that's when I thought I have stories to tell about that time growing up, and growing up playing games. I finally, after he'd been dead a couple of years, I thought, okay, I can do this. Yeah. And so
you did a video on that as well, did you not?
I did. I did a video just sort of commemorating him and everything. Yeah. A couple of them.
Therapeutic for yourself as well.
It really was, and he was he was hardcore PlayStation 4 fan, big Dallas Cowboys fan. His name was Curtis Newton, really cool guy, a lot of fun to hang out with, and so his loss was he was about 10 years younger than me. It was a great loss, and but after a couple of years, I thought, okay, let's figure out what we're going to do, and with my son's help, my son would film, and he would edit and do all this stuff, and with his help, I sort of got the ball rolling in the whole Tales from a Retro Gamer thing. And it's actually, it's growing pretty fast, I think, relatively speaking. In the old days, it was easier. The time
you've been on, you're almost at 3,000 subs. That's really good. That's great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's tough these days. The algorithm is difficult. And, if you started off in 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, you could grow pretty quickly. But nowadays, it's tough to grow your audience.
Yeah. Here's a fellow who knows that right here, Chris, CM Retro Gaming. He's up to I'd say, Chris, you're right around 4,000, I think, right? If I'm not mistaken, that's just off the top of my head. Hopefully I'm not off too much. But, I mean, he's right. I started late. My son was into it a few years earlier, and his channel grew right up to 1,000, making, just stuff, And it just seems to be different nowadays, making content.
It's hard to get it. You don't want to. It's funny. I post a lot, about books, about videos, and everything. And I could be accused of spamming or whatever. But hey, if you don't promote yourself, you're not going to grow. So I kind of have to do it.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah, Chris is sneaking up on 5K right on. I'm hoping 1,000 after this year. I just hit 849, I think, today. So, but I always look at it this way. It's something I do for fun. Yeah. I can't put out a video every day. I can hardly put out a video every week. Right. I would love of anything that I'm doing, I need to dedicate more time to the 125 because to make it legitimate, I have to get that first season in the books. And then maybe it's got enough momentum to keep going. But until I can commit to doing that, which is very difficult, it's sort of hard to do. But, that's...
Steady uploads definitely help. That's for sure. And sometimes I'll just do a talking head episode or like a podcast or a vlog. I'll basically just get on and talk about something in the news. If something weird happened with GameStop, or like today, I just, took about an hour and a half and just did a video about Bill Maher saying playing video games or watching people play video games is a waste of time. Yeah. I'll jump on and say something about that. I didn't have to do a whole lot of editing or anything, just so a steady stream of content helps. I'm having fun doing it too. I wouldn't do it if I wasn't having fun. Thanks, Lance. I appreciate it.
And back in the day, look who just showed up. Back in the day gamer, must not be Nudie Magazine Day. And it's Coco over there. Coco is right over here. I'm sort of looking. I'm not going to disturb her right now. Maybe I'll grab her and pull a Perry later on if that's the Jeff's dog makes an appearance in the screen every once in a while. I can go get Coco, but I picked Coco up a few minutes ago and my back still hurts. So
Coco's a big cat.
Oh, Coco's a big cat. Yeah, Coco's 22 pounds. Right on. But even though you're into YouTube a lot, it never really did steal your passion. Your number one passion is still writing, isn't it?
I'm a writer first and foremost. I grew up reading. My mom would take me to used bookstores, and I would buy comic books. I would buy. She got me into reading novels like Mary Higgins Clark, and that led to Stephen King and Robert Bloch and Richard Matheson and Charles Beaumont and Dean Koontz and all that great stuff. And I grew up reading Electronic Games Magazine and Joystick Magazine and Electronic Fun with computers and games. I would I couldn't afford to buy them all. I would buy electronic games usually, but the others, most of them, I would just read at the grocery store. Now, if you went to 7-Eleven and read them, they would, son, this ain't no library. But but if you went to the grocery store, they couldn't care less. I would, and they had better selection anyway. So I'd go to Safeway, and I would just read every video game magazine.
That's hilarious.
On the stands.
Let's get right back. That's what you do. What you have to do, right?
Absolutely, it was necessity, and so my interest in reading led to an interest in writing, and I was in the Scholastic Book Club as a kid, getting Dynamite Magazine, Pizzazz Magazine, which was Marvel's pop culture magazine, and getting War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells and all that. You know, just every month my mom would let me get 3 books out of the Scholastic catalog.
Everybody remembers those. That little piece of paper would come in to flip through. That was the biggest part of the. How often they came? About every 2 months.
It was monthly.
Wow, that was the best day.
That was exciting. And then when the books would come in the boxes, I always felt sorry for the kids that didn't get anything. Because there was always those.
When I first heard Brett Weiss was being here, I didn't believe him, but oh my God, it's true.
Is that a good or a bad thing?
We'll take it as good.
Okay.
Right here, Brett, is that a Motley Crue hat in the background?
It is. It's a brand new Motley Crue hat I found at a garage sale. It was up there with stuff they had that was new with the tag and everything. So yes, good eye.
That's a good eye right there. Let me tell you
That's
that.
right. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Is that a Mary Kate and Ashley game in the background?
What's that?
Is that a Mary Kate and Ashley game in the background?
It probably is. It's probably just crap I got in a garage sale or piles of stuff that's ready for eBay or my antique booth or convention.
Back in the day, Gaber's laughing at that one right now because he got a box the other day, and they gave him 4 Mary Kate and Ashley games in his treasures box. There's
Nice.
A box of Floyd. It was on purpose. It was a joke. He got a great game with it, but it was funny. The video was hilarious.
What's crazy to me is that Elizabeth Olsen is their younger sister.
Yes, really.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, and we're watching because my youngest MJ is right into the Marvel Universe. So every Friday night, faithfully, we watch the new episode. And I know we were 3 episodes into it, and we got talking about that. And I said, she's an Olsen. She's related to the Olsen twins, and that's like that was the revelation, right? It was hilarious.
Yeah, it's crazy. My wife and I really enjoyed WandaVision a lot. I thought it was great.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of your books. First of all, I mean, one of the main reasons we're here once again, I'm just going to kick it up on the screen here if I can find it very quickly, is that you are doing the Kickstarter for
the NES Omnibus, Volume 2.
And
completing the library.
For everybody looking at that, those figures are in Canadian money, not American, because, of course, I am in the Great White North.
Yeah, we're almost to 15,000 in US dollars with 23 days to go. So it's going well so far.
Which is phenomenal. And, I mean, of all the ways for people to get...
Click on that video.
What's that? Oh, click
on the video.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll probably hear it.
You can mute it if you want, I guess. There you go. You don't have to watch the whole thing.
Well, I hadn't thought to even do it. Okay, I'm going to make that smaller again. And right on. And of course, there's all kinds of different tiers. You can get different perks and such. And I backed, of course, the first one, which I've talked about a few different videos and such.
Appreciate that.
And let's look at some of the perks. I got them right here. I thought I might show them real quick. I'm going to turn that off.
Cool. Yeah, so the limited numbered edition, it's obviously numbered, and you get like a I send things myself, plus the publisher sends stuff. So you get, there's a variety of things.
I did get 2 packages, and they're both actually in here. So the first one I got now, I'm supposed to put that inside my book, right, Brett?
That's a book plate. Yeah, that's your numbered. You got number 24.
Number 24.
Yeah, that's called in the publishing industry. That's called a book plate.
And I should be applying that to what page? Right inside the cover on the
Most people do it the inside hardcover. Yeah.
Okay.
Center that on the inside hardcover.
And of course, this is from your publisher, Schiffler Publishing.
Schiffer,
sorry. And I got a couple of your cards. Are those Walter Day cards?
Yes, they are.
Yes, sir.
Yep, I sent those.
Day
So you get that from me and from the publisher.
Right on. And of course, that's the ad for the channel.
For the YouTube. The tubes.
the tubes, and oh, look at this. Okay, is this from the publisher, the letter, and then I got
the letter and the bookmarks and the bumper sticker. So you need to put that on your car.
Here you go. Back in the days, they used to put bumper stickers. I remember that in the 70s and 80s, every car had a bumper sticker on it.
Yeah, bumper stickers were big, and iron-on patches on clothes.
Yes, that's right.
So for $50, you can get the book, and I don't charge for autographs. I don't ever see myself charging for an autograph. That just seems weird to me. Yeah. Maybe if I were Michael Jordan, maybe I would charge for an autograph. But just writing about retro games, that seems kind of silly to charge for an autograph. So I never charge for autographs. The book is $50, and then the limited numbered edition with the extras, like the button and the bumper sticker and the book plate, that's $70. It's numbered 1 through 100. And then there's other perks too, like you can get other books of mine through the Kickstarter. So yeah.
And so and basically those are from the NES Volume 1, but the ones for the 2 were similar perks, right?
Similar perks with just the new design. And there's also like desktop paper and backer updates, and I throw, I will ship out stuff. I try to put like a poster or a magazine or just stuff like, I've got stuff all over my office that I get from publishers or convention promoters, and I try to put in surprises and just goodies with every shipment I do, whether it's Kickstarter or just any direct order I get. I try to put in some extra stuff.
I like to throw in a couple little things. I forgot one of them already, but one thing about Kickstarter, like it's so much better. I like supporting Kickstarter because it supports the author more than any other means of purchasing the book, other than maybe purchase directly from you. But I would rather go to the Kickstarter than wait for Amazon, wait for something else, because I want you to keep writing books, because I want more books later on. So that's why I want to support Kickstarter. That's why I think, if you're thinking when you support something in Kickstarter, you're not only supporting that project, you're supporting future projects.
Absolutely. That is super helpful. I appreciate every Amazon sale and every direct sale, every sale. But if all my sales were through Amazon, this wouldn't be viable for me to do, because it's just the books take so much time. But having said that, whatever. People can read my articles for free on my website. I have some articles up there. If you just want to watch my YouTube videos, that's fine. If you want to buy all my books, that's fine. Everybody's welcome to the party. So,
Speaking of all your books, let's talk about some of the older ones. Mm-hmm. What's the first book? Okay. Did you start off your writing? I'm guessing this. I mean, the first thing you wrote wasn't about video games.
That's a good question. Right. The first thing I wrote some short stories in the early to mid 90s. I wrote some short stories for small press magazines and for online magazines. And I had limited success with that. I wrote some decent stories that got published. And then in like 1997, I got my first paid thing I wrote for an online magazine. They paid me $10 for a short story. Yeah. And then either late in 97 or sometime in 98, I started writing for the All Game Guide. And that was this big online database that's objective was to write synopses and reviews for every game, for every console and computer. My brother-in-law sent me this resume or this job notice, thing, this classified ad or whatever you want to call it, that this website wanted write-ups for everything. And the notice said, we're looking for people to write about ColecoVision and Commodore 64 and all this other stuff. And I'm like, are you serious? They're going to pay me for this? Because in 1997, 98, nobody cared about that stuff. That was considered garbage. And of course, no one was going to pay you to write about it. There were some fanzines like Digital Press, Slapdash in the 90s. There were video game fanzines from these hardcore fans, but nobody's going to pay you to write about old games. But the All Game Guide did. And I did that for several years, and I really honed my craft with that. But when that went away, I met McFarlane Publishers at the 2006 San Diego Comic-Con. And in 2007, McFarlane, which has a lot of books now on video games, an entire wing devoted to video games. This was McFarlane's very first video game book. Okay, Classic Home Video Games, 72 through 84. And this was the world's first book to have write-ups for every single release for the Intellivision, for the Atari 5200, for the ColecoVision, for the Atari 7800, for the Vectrex, all those old systems. The only reason I don't say Atari 2600 is because Leonard Herman beat me to the punch with ABC to the VCS. He wrote this in the mid-90s, and ABC to the VCS was the first book to cover an entire console, write-ups for every game.
And I want to look to see if I can find a copy of that somewhere because I'm not familiar with. You just that's first I've seen it.
Yeah,
and,
he doesn't promote it a whole lot because it's out of print, so you don't hear that much about it. But that was the first, and I ordered that as soon as I found out about it. And the first edition of Phoenix that he published, now it's fourth edition. It's a big hardcover book. It was just a black and white trade paperback when it first came out, and I was the fourth person ever to order that book, which he posted about, which is kind of neat. But yeah, so this book was the first to cover all the other systems. It has the 2600 in it too, my write-ups, capsule reviews of that. But all those other systems, this was the first back in 2007, and which was kind of an interesting time period because this was around when YouTube gamers started taking off, like Angry Video Game Nerd. That's kind of when he started getting traction. And this is when like the Wii Shop channel was new, and retro gaming started kind of taking off around 2006, 2007. That's when it kind of started getting popular. And my books just kind of coincided with that, rode the wave a little and maybe helped popularize them some. Yep, and then the next two volumes. And the red book you're holding in your hand, that was the world's first book to have a write-up for every single NES game.
Yes,
obviously, nowadays the books have gotten bigger and hardcover and full color and all that, but those were first.
Still great reference. Like when I'm looking for a game, looking about a game, I can just get the little blurb enough to learn about the game, right?
Yeah, I just wanted like a convenient reference book. I grew up reading like Leonard and Maltin's, movie guides and just quick reference books, so you didn't have to slog through all that. You can look online and just find all the stuff you have to wade through. I just wanted a convenient, capsule synopses of each game, so you can just have a quick reference.
Quick question on this one right here.
Mm-hmm.
Are these some of the short stories that you're talking about having written way back when? Because that's what I got.
Yes, they sure are. But I went back through each one and I rewrote some of them and polished them up. And some of them I did not include because they weren't very good. But yeah, most of those in there are ones I wrote during the 1990s, just refurbished, rewritten.
And I have gone through that whole book, read that whole one. I really enjoyed it.
It's got some bizarre stuff in it, short stories.
Yeah, I really did enjoy it.
Thank you.
This one that I'm about to show you is sort of, again, Schiffer, okay? But this is where I first heard of you, okay? And I heard it on, it was RGT85, who we all are familiar with, did a promo on it. This is back before he was the size of the channel he was. This is back when he was hanging around with the kid. He had about the same number of subs as less subs than you do now. Let's put it that way. And
was it that far back?
Oh, it was 2017, probably 2016. He really expanded from 5,000 in 16. I think when we went down to too many games in 2016, he had just crept up to almost 5,000. I think.
Wow, he's really exploded.
And now he's almost 400. So
yeah, it's amazing.
Anyway, so he promoted this book and did a review of it, and I said that's something that I really like. And I hadn't heard of yourself. I hadn't really bought too many books. I ordered it up, and I was really, really happy with that book. I really enjoyed 100 Greatest Console Video Games, 1977 to 87. And here's a funny little tidbit too, which I didn't mention before. Was the other day I was out running. I'm sort of listening through the Intellivisionaries podcast. The older ones as I'm out running when I go out running and waiting for the new one to come out. And I think it was the one on like 18 or 19. It was on Math the Word Fun, I believe. And you actually did an interview, I believe, with Rick. Was it not with Rick or was it with Paul? Do you remember?
Okay.
Yeah, you.
I didn't.
For the
I was on the Intellivisionaries podcast one time.
Yeah, you were on it, and you were promoting this book at the time.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't remember a specific interview, but anyway, I do a lot of stuff, so I don't remember. Yeah,
there you go. Anyway, that would be that's the type of thing, this goes. Why did you pick the years 1977 to 1987?
Okay, let me show you the book that influenced that one.
Okay.
So I've got this massive science fiction movie book, Keep Watching the Skies.
Yep.
This covers the 50s science fiction. So you've got that great decade of the 50s, all those great science fiction movies, Forbidden Planet, The Day the Earth Stood Still. You know, the 50s were just an amazing year. The Thing, great year for science fiction movies. I thought the video game publishing industry needs a book like this, where you've got a specific decade that's classic, that's important. The 2600 came out in 77, which is when the book starts, up to 87. There's a decade, like that book covers a decade of the 50s. This one covers 77 through 87, the first few years of the NES. I thought that's perfect. It's a decade, and it's a very crucial era, very crucial time. And I just thought, in my book, it was influenced by that. I read that book, and I thought, we need a video game version of this. And that book is kind of like that one, where I quote, other sources. Yeah. I talk, quote like some reviews from back in the day, and I just cover each game, a little bit of development history and stuff like that for a lot of the games, review material. Every game has at least 2 pages, that kind of full color throughout. And I'd actually pitched that book to McFarlane.
Okay, that's what about that. They didn't.
I'm glad they didn't take it because Schiffer, they just do nicer books, hardcovers, full color, and all that. So
I was going to say it's a stepping stone. This was your first book for Schiffer.
Yeah, that was the first book for Schiffer, and that's my best-selling book ever. And that was the book every Barnes and Noble in the United States ordered 3 copies of that for their stores.
Wow,
so that was nice. Wow. Yeah, so it was, and I sell it. It just sells all the time. It shows if someone walks up to my table and they kind of don't know what they want, and they want to buy one book. Yeah, usually it's that one.
Yeah, so, that makes sense.
It's funny. I bought that book at the same time as you, Pete, because I was watching RGT 85's video.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. Great exposure. Sean's a great guy. I'd met him at too many games. The time Leonard Herman and I were there as guests. Leonard and I did a panel, and I'd been corresponding with Sean, online a bit, but met him there. Really cool guy.
Yeah, no, right on. And that's the type of book. Look at that 87. Boys, that could handle a sequel or something, really. Especially when we consider it sold so well.
We'll see about that.
So after this book for Schiffer, was the next one the Omnibus?
Yeah, the SNES Omnibus, the Super Nintendo one. And I was originally going to continue the classic home video game series. Right. And I was going to do a 4th book in that series with the Super Nintendo, Jaguar, CDI, and 3DO, and a few others. But, the retro gaming book publishing has changed since 2007 when my first classic home video games book came out. So I thought, I'm going to Schiffer, and I'm going to focus just on the Super Nintendo, the most popular console of that era. Of the early to before PS1 came out, and that time between the Genesis and the PS1, that era. I'm going with the Super Nintendo instead of doing a comprehensive with the Jaguar and 3DI and CDO and all that. I went for the Super Nintendo for the big full color screenshots and all that. Yeah. It worked out really, really well.
I think probably with the difference, like you said, with the difference in the publisher, you hit the nail on the head with it.
Yeah, Schiffer's done a great job. I'm very happy with them, and they've been class all the way.
Lance has it pegged right there. Wouldn't that be something? A sequel?
Thanks, Lance. We'll have to see about that.
Right on. So, and obviously the SNES Omnibus. Before I jump past that, though, you don't only write video game books. Was the other one that you want? You must have a copy there.
Yeah, this book. Let's see. Timeline. I think this came out before the SNES Omnibus.
Okay.
Memory serves. Yeah, this was my next book. This was definitely a passion project, a labor of love for sure. And McFarlane jumped on it because there had never been a Kiss encyclopedia before. Okay. The Grateful Dead, the Stones, Elvis, the Beatles, all these big iconic bands that everyone's heard of, they all have encyclopedias except for Kiss. And I thought that was really strange. This big marketable band did not have one. They've got every other merchandise under the sun. And I thought, I'm going to write a Kiss encyclopedia if I can find a publisher. And McFarlane loved the idea and jumped on it. And there you go. I spent, the next year and a half or so just finding every nugget, every tidbit of information I could find on the band, every song, every record, every tour, just capsule summaries, reviews in a lot of cases, like of the albums, of the songs.
You have to be a huge fan to write that book, do you not?
Well, I was sitting around, I was reading a bunch of different Kiss books, namely their autobiographies. Each band member wrote an autobiography, and I was like, there's just so much Kiss stuff everywhere. They've all made appearances in movies and TV shows. There have been all these stories over the years, all these, some are legends, some actually happened. I need to get all of this into one place for an encyclopedia, and it's gone over real well. I've had a lot of great reviews on it, and like the Three Sides of the Coin, that very popular Kiss podcast, they had me on their show, and they really enjoyed the book, but it was a lot of fun to write. At times it could be tedious because it's a lot. There's a lot of history to go through.
There'll be some pressure not to miss something too,
because the band members contradict each other.
Okay.
Gene Simmons will say this happened, and Ace Frehley will say this happened. So in the encyclopedia, I'll just have to give the varying accounts, and in some cases you have to leave it up to the reader who they believe.
You have to be very cautious not to miss something flagrant.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
there's so much with the video game books too. There's so much minutia that you have to, the date, the publisher, the level names, and all this different stuff. It really can kind of make you crazy after a while.
Somewhere there's somebody who knows that if you make a mistake, there's somebody going to see that and know it.
Oh yeah, definitely,
and call you out on it.
Yeah, and with writing, you can check and double check and triple check. Yeah. With YouTube, you're saying some things off the cuff, and that makes it more difficult because people call you out on it. I was like, well, I was just saying that off the top of my head or something. Yeah. So I actually YouTube is harder for me than writing because I've been a writer since the 90s, and YouTube is far, obviously something I've just picked up and over the last couple of years. And for the longest time, I grew up having stage fright. I did not want to be on camera. I didn't want to be in front talking to me. Back in the 90s, I owned a couple of comic book stores with my brother-in-law. And there were a few times the news came out. Like we had Adam West in our store autographing comics and videos and stuff. When Superman died, that was a big deal. When the serial killer trading cards came out, that was a big news story. So the news would come out and talk, and I never wanted to be interviewed. I would always have my brother-in-law do all that So with YouTube, I've had to accustom myself to be on camera and to speak and stuff, because what we're doing right now would have been tough for me 5 years ago before I started all this.
Yeah, it's like, well, I'm going to say the exact same thing. The hardest thing for me is sitting down and actually turning on the camera and recording something. I just all stressed out. I never know what to say, and I make 15,000 mistakes. And
well, it doesn't come across that way. You've got to, you have kind of just a friendly demeanor and everything, and your videos are fun to watch. Yeah,
I appreciate it. It's a lot of editing.
Yeah, right, right. I got you.
Yeah, that's why these are even more stressful because there's no editing here, right?
So far, so good.
Yeah, so far so good. So I sort of jumped out because I want to talk about that Kiss book a little bit too, because it's so it's different than what you done before, but it's just another passion that you have, right?
Yeah, big time Kiss fan since 1975.
Obviously, those SNES Omnibus. I mean, if Schiffer turns around and says, "Yep, let's do the NES now," or you go to them and they say, "Yes, we want to do it."
Yeah, I pitched.
Was that your first choice to go to the NES next?
It was a tough choice. It's just such a popular console, and I've got more Omnibuy in the works that I can't speak about yet.
Understood.
And, it was kind of hard to pick what next, but what Adam F. Goldberg, who produced the Goldbergs TV show, he wrote the foreword to the NES Omnibus. So I'm glad I went with the NES Omnibus next. I'll just put it that way, because he was a hardcore NES fan, and I know a guy that knows Adam Goldberg, and so he put me in touch with him, and he was super enthusiastic and excited about doing it. And so rather than answer, was that my choice to go next, I'm just going to say I'm glad I did it, because Adam Goldberg, he wouldn't have written the forward to any other system because that's the system he grew up with.
The timing was perfect.
It was a good timing, and the NES is just such an iconic console. That's one reason I went with that next, is just because it's so freaking iconic.
Lance, I'm going to go to your question a little bit later on, but we'll go. But that's a great question coming up. We'll wait till we'll get to another point, and we'll go back to that question for sure. Don't let me forget, Lance. Sorry, Brett. Cool. So what was I going to say? So you went to do the NES one, and you had some history with writing other than your classic home video game series that you did.
Right.
You had provided some write-ups for an NES Omnibus per se.
Yeah, so I was at the 2009 or 10, one of those Screw Attack game convention.
Yeah.
That's when I discovered all these YouTubers and stuff.
Yeah.
And I had this book came out in 2009, way before most of the retro gaming books. There were people that beat me to the punch. Leonard Herman, Van Burnham, there were people that did retro gaming books before I did. But the classic home video games books were pretty early, relatively speaking. This came out in 2009. This was the first book to cover the NES in its entirety, every U.S. release, along with the Master System and 7800.
Yeah.
I was set up at the Screw Attack Game Convention, and I had this book for sale along with, the first one. And those were the only two books I had written at that point. So I had both of those books for sale, plus just some games and stuff. And Pat, the NES Punk, comes up to my booth, and he sees this Nintendo book, and he said, I've been thinking about writing a Nintendo book, an NES book, for a long time, because obviously he's the NES Punk, hardcore NES fan. And we got to talking, and he was looking at it and everything. He said, this is pretty neat, but I want to do one that's like a big coffee table book with, pictures of, in color, a big book with screenshots and everything. I would really like to do that. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. That'd be really cool. And so we got to talking. And at one point, either at that, I think he gave me his phone number or something. I don't remember exactly how it went. But at some point, shortly thereafter, he said he was going to have contributing writers. Because, it's 600 and something, or 7, I don't even remember, 700 something, whatever.
Right.
Tons of NES games. It's, the Genesis, Super Nintendo and NES, all 7+ or whatever game, 100 and something games, tons of games, and he wanted to have some contributing writers write some of the games. And I ended up, over time, we conversed and we became good friends. This was 2009, 2010.
Sure.
And over time, we became good friends. We would see each other at shows and everything, and I ended up writing 60 reviews and reflections for his Ultimate Nintendo Guidebook. This is the first edition, and at the beginning of the book, or a few pages in, you've got the other contributing writers.
Sure, I have that first edition too. Yeah,
I'm on here somewhere. Yeah, there I am.
Yeah.
Anyway, you get the idea. Ian is in there, his podcasting partner. So Pat wrote the most reviews and reflections at over 400. Ian wrote around 150. Well, I was third. I wrote around 60 reviews and reflections for the book, which is really cool. I mean, this was this was over 10 years. I guess 10 years or so ago, or a little over. And I thought, this is great. This will be good exposure. I'm flattered that he asked me to do this. That was awesome. We had a great working relationship, and I found him to be actually a pretty good editor. I wrote reviews. I would send him in and I would say, hey, why don't you comment on this aspect of the game as well? And he would offer suggestions, and, I would, usually they were good. And so it was great. And then, let's see, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, I saw that he had a solicitation for a 3rd edition of this book. He was putting it back into print, and he said 60 all new, completely rewritten reviews. I'm like, that's interesting. 60 rewritten reviews.
That's how you found out?
That's puzzling. Yeah. I thought, that's interesting. So I messaged him, and at this point, there was everything. I didn't know of anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we speak at conventions and stuff. It's all good. And I messaged him, asked him, so 60 rewritten reviews, does that mean what I think it means? And then he didn't answer. And I thought, well, that's odd. And I just kind of get the since I've started doing the omnibus books that are the big full color hardcover books, maybe he just wanted separation. And I get that. I have no problem with him taking my reviews out and replacing them. If he just wants complete separation between the projects, perfectly fine. Just a little heads up would have been nice, because at that point, part of my resume, when I would discuss things with game companies or convention promoters, I've written for At Games. I'm the senior editor for Opcode Games' ColecoVision stuff. So I work with game companies and I do shows. Well, part of my resume up to that point was that, I'd written 60 reviews for Pat's book, and I was still using that as I would do conventions. Well, the new edition comes out with my work not in it. And so if they see my resume and then see this book, well, they'll think, well, is he just lying about that or what? And just as a professional courtesy, it would have been nice to reach out. But
I have to ask, did most of the other contributors be taken out, edited out, and replaced, or was it just yours?
Just 60.
Just
mine. All the others are the same.
And
just take out mine. And I'm not here to trash people or anything, but because I get why he would. I probably wouldn't have done it myself, but I get why he did. If he just wanted separation between the projects, because they're roughly, there's some crossover similarities. Obviously big hardcover NES books, and I could get why he would want separation. But just the professional courtesy, letting me know, give me a heads up. Hey, And I would have understood. People know me. I'm easy to get along with. So just a professional courtesy would have been nice. And since that time, we just, I don't know. We were friends for a long time, so I didn't really get what was going on. But to me, this is just, I'm a journalist also, and I've got other gigs. Book writing is great, but it's not my only thing. And to me, I just, I see other writers at conventions, like the Art of Atari. What's his name?
Lipitino.
Yeah, Tim Lipitino. Great guy. I
have his book here too. It's a great book. Oh my god.
Yeah, Chris Kohler, another game author. Wittenhagen. We're friends. We see each other at all these shows. Why not be friends? Leonard Herman, I've known him for longer than all these other guys. Since 2003 Classic Gaming Expo. And so
I was telling you about that yesterday about Leonard, because that year, we hadn't talked a whole lot at all up to that point. I think I only had one of your books. I bought another one at Too Many Games back. You were there 1 year, right? 17 or 18?
I've only been there once, and it was the time I was with Leonard Herman. Yeah, I was around that time.
Yeah, and I brought a book for you, but I remember seeing his books. I really want to pick up his books as well now that I know more about them.
Yeah, you definitely want
Phoenix. You will get some time after we've been talking so much, right? But
yeah, you'll definitely want Phoenix. There's a black and white edition and a color edition. Color edition is pretty expensive, but it worth it in my opinion.
Worth it.
Yeah, and he was the first guy to write a serious, extensive video game history book.
Right.
Phoenix.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's look at Leia's question. If anybody else has any other questions for Brett, please type them in. We'll share them right now. But have any of the video game console companies given any feedback or response to any of your books? Have you ever?
That's a great question.
Yes.
No, I haven't heard. They're considered fair usage. The images and stuff, because they're considered of a historical nature, and they're considered educational for what that's worth. And so not a word. The funniest thing that happened was with my KISS book. It was 2 or 3 years after it had come out. Gene Simmons tweeted the book.
Okay.
And my wife and I had just gone to a Billy Joel concert.
Oh.
About 11 o'clock at night. It was an amazing concert, by the way. And we had just gotten out of that, and a friend of mine texted me a screen grab of Gene Simmons' tweet that he had tweeted out my book. Apparently, he had gotten a FedEx package because the book was laying on top of a FedEx envelope.
Yeah.
And he tweeted this out, and all he said was, an H and like 4 or 5 M's with ... That's all he tweeted. So I posted that, and I was like, Gene Simmons is going to sue you, because he's a hardcore KISS collector, Gene Simmons, for those of you that don't really know that much about KISS. His house is basically a museum to KISS. Paul Stanley is the opposite. if you go into Paul Stanley's house, you wouldn't know you would just think he's a rich guy that has cool furnishings. You wouldn't know he's in KISS, unless maybe you see a nook and cranny, or maybe he has something somewhere. But everything I've seen of Paul Stanley's house is just a cool, fancy house. Gene Simmons has an entire wing that's a museum of KISS, and he wants every KISS item. And so he got my book. I don't know if a fan sent it to him or if he just stumbled across it and ordered it himself, but he has the book now, and I never heard from him. I've tweeted at him a few times some KISS related things, but I never get any response. And someone gave me his, I don't think it was Doc's, his personal manager, maybe not the band manager, his personal manager, his contact info, but I never heard back from him either. So anyway, they get a lot of people tugging at their heels. So I don't blame them for ignoring me.
Yeah, you would think that the video game companies are KISS. I mean, the guys, whatever, but they would like the promotion to a degree. I mean, the history and they would take concern about if you would think they provide feedback if they looked at your product. You would think they would have somebody that would want to review these products just to make sure it's in their own best interest. And if they're accurate, give you the feedback that they're accurate.
I think they're just kind of above it all. I mean, I think they're take Nintendo for example. They're invested in the Switch and whatever else, and they're concentrating on that. I'm just a bug. I'm just a little gnat that can. Yeah. They don't care much about, I'm sure.
I suppose. So, one last time, let's talk about the not only the Kickstarter, but all of your books. Okay. The best spot to get your books is, in my opinion, right now, your website, correct?
BrettWeissWords.com. That'll take you links to buy books from me direct. U.S. residents can buy books direct from me. It's really expensive to ship out of the U.S., so the best way to go, so you can order signed books direct from me, back us on Kickstarter, Amazon author page if you want to go that route. And along the side there, you can click on each book. But at the top of the page, it's got the link that'll take you to all my video game books.
All the different ones are right here along the list, too. That's an interesting one. It seems to me you sent me that one digital one time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was just that's a collection of articles I've written for different publications. I've written for a ton of different magazines. And most of the chapters, the essays in there, or revised. I'll go over each one, but I've written for Film Facts, Antique Week, Fangoria, tons of different publications.
Wow. Back up to the top here. So your links are all right in here if you're looking to order a book. And like you said, autographed, right?
Yes, sir. No upcharge.
and you talk about autographs and stuff like that. I collect autographs of I just love collecting autographs. And my favorites aren't the most famous people. It's the people that have just provided me some sort of, something entertainment, whether it's, I love wrestling, whether it's a wrestler that used to wrestle around this area when I was a kid, or cool. Somebody who's on my favorite TV show in the 70s, 80s. I'd rather get those than anything.
And something that meant something to you personally. That's
cool. And I look at these books that you guys produce, whether it's yourself or Jeffrey or Pat or anybody, obviously there's a passion. You guys have to have a special passion to be able to produce these books.
Yeah, it's part passion, part madness, I think.
Yeah, okay, there's some of that too. But I'm honored just to have the author to autograph it because I know the blood, sweat, and tears that went into those books. You were talking earlier about how I said about being every step being gratifying, and how did you, and you look at somebody like myself. Could I write a book? Well, you know what? If you can look past those hurdles and look past the size of that mountain, that just each individual step to get over the top of it, any of us could, and you guys have done it. So you deserve. It's very commendable for you to get over that hurdle.
I tell you, my first few books, I'm enjoying writing them more now. My first few books, I was just so invested in obsessing over them to get them completed that I didn't enjoy the journey as much. I still loved it, especially the first book, writing about Atari and television and ColecoVision, and the prospect of getting my first book published was just so exciting. Yeah. But then the next two were still fun, but I had such a goal-oriented in mind. Well, the last few books, I'm appreciating it more, just the journey of it, just really having fun doing it, and just trying to enjoy it more, So
that's awesome.
Great.
So guys, check out that Kickstarter. Check out BrettWeissWords.com and check out Tales of a Retro Gamer. You got Patreon. You got Patreon. You got subscribe. Like, comment, and subscribe to Papa Pete, Go Game Go, and Tales from a Retro Gamer, which is right on YouTube. Search for Brett Weiss and you'll find it. Right on. Well, do we have any more questions? Did I miss anything in the chat, Jeff, at all?
No, I don't think so, because Lance had the last thing there.
Yeah, what a great question, too. Thank you to everybody in the chat different people were in and out the whole time. Really great group. Man, thanks for the conversation, Brett. It was really interesting, enlightening. Yeah,
it's been a lot of fun. Appreciate you having me on, and I enjoyed your channel, so it's been great being on, and hope to see you at a convention one of these days again. You say you met me at too many games, but I don't remember. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
But at the next convention, I will surely remember, because
there you go.
I definitely
know you will.
Right.
I mean, here I was. I had bought, I think the only book that I had at that time was this one. And what I bought was one of these. Okay, this one probably, right? The earliest one. And I talked to you a little bit. You and Leonard were sitting there, but you're sitting there at a table meeting with and that place was packed.
Oh, it was a great show. Yeah.
You're seeing thousands of people walk by you, whereas I'm only, going to the specific people. Oh, I went to Brett's table and talked to Brett. So, of course, I remember that. Why would you remember that? There's no reason for you to remember that.
Why would I remember some rando?
That's right. Oh, put it this way. I'm kind of glad you don't, because there wouldn't be a reason for you to remember me.
Right.
Well, what do you think? Final word, Jeff?
Oh, Bryce, I want to tell you real quick. I've got your first 3 omnibus. I've ordered them all just recently.
Very cool.
And they've been coming in like every few weeks, and I'll get a big package because they come in it's a flat box, but it's pretty big. And I'll go grab it. My wife says, "What's that?" I said, "It's a book." "What kind of book?" "Video game book." She's like, "Oh." And that's happened 3 times in a row now.
That's what I like to hear.
There's one more coming.
That's awesome.
Hold
on tight. There's another one.
Yeah.
And don't worry, Celia. We showed him a list of about another 10 or 12 that he can order, so we'll have lots of books coming.
Well, I'm currently working on 2 books at once, so keep an eye out for those in 2022. One or the other. One of them probably next year. So we'll see what happens.
Excellent. Well, guys, once again, Brett, thank you for joining Jeff and I tonight. It was awesome. Really, really
thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Good to meet you,
finding chat. Beautiful. Thank you so much for tuning in. Anyway, that's it for tonight. Well, we have no idea how do we sign off these things, Jeff? We can't go game gone.
No, I don't think we've ever signed off, actually.
There you go. That's the way to go. All right. See you guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Caper Dave.